Welcome back, everyone. It is LaughNgamez here, and today we're back with another Starcraft 2 1 vs 1 cast. Today we have ourselves a Terran versus Protoss on the map Frozen Temple. So without further ado, spawning in the bottom right corner of the map, we have Rodzynnn playing for Team EC Visualize, who is the Protoss player, and spawning up in the top left, we have the Terran player playing for Flipside. It is Drunkenboi. So we have ourselves a North American Canadian Terran versus, I believe, a Polish European Protoss. So it's going to be a bit interesting here. This replay is about, as of me casting this, it is a bit of an older replay, but it'll still be valid here. It's been a few days since I cast something, so I figured I'll just cast the first game I find anyway. So we have just seemingly a normal gateway, likely to be a gateway expand coming out of Rodzynnn. And for Drunkenboi, it seems like it's just going to be a Reaper expand. So both these players playing very standard by all means, but they're, interestingly enough, they're both going for a Worker Scout. So I guess they're not really sure of each other's play style. So they both want to be safe and make sure they know what's going on scouting. We could actually see maybe an engineering bay block or a pylon block coming down, but neither of the players going to do that. So both players just trying to get as much information as possible. Likely the Reaper going to... Yeah, there's the Reaper starting up for Drunkenboi. And then the Cyber Core and Nexus is on the way for Rodzynnn. So this is where things are going to start to diversify. Not unusual for a Protoss to take a gas this early, but it is meaning that Rodzynn's not going to go for any super greedy or super strange build here. He's getting his normal second gas as a Protoss player. And for Drunkenboi, we have just everything coming out on normally. He's getting his command center up, getting a reactor on that barracks. He's going to want to start pumping out Marines after that's done, just in case of any possible Oracle or anything. And now Drunkenboi actually securing this watchtower, so both players really wanting to know what's going on here. Drunkenboi moving in with this Reaper, just scouting everything that's going on. Like this is a high amount of scouting and information that the players are seeking here. Now, this is where Rodzynnn actually picks his tech here. He's gone for a Twilight Council before his Mothership core, so that means he is going to want to invest into some sort of tech fairly early on here. Likely possibly start researching Blink or Resonating Glaives. The fact that he opened with a Stalker means it's likely going to point towards Blink. So he's going to want to get those Blink Stalkers. Now the Reaper coming in here, actually trying to pick away at a probe here. Doesn't manage to kill one. Just getting a bit of information here, seeing exactly what's going on, which is a whole lot of nothing at this natural base. Not too many probes there yet. But that Reaper stays alive, so it could come in and scout at another time. Meanwhile, on Drunkenboi's side of the map, he's getting a bunker, so playing it safe. He's getting up his second barracks, and this has a tech lab on it, so he's likely going to be starting his stim pack here, getting his stim. He's likely going to throw down a starport here in a second, so probably going to want to have that high mobility stim medivac combination here as a Terran player that they love so much. And we see the Reaper for Drunkenboi coming in, seeing there's no third base on the way yet, and actually sees two gateways coming down for Rodzynnn, so he sees an upgrade researching. So the only question really for Drunkenboi is this going to be Blink or Resonating Glaives? So Stalkers or Adepts. Now that Reaper does get picked off after getting a great deal of information, it also scouted the Robotics Bay. So he knows exactly what's going on. He's likely going to assume that it's going to be a Warp Prism play. As a Terran player, if you see a Robo and you see a Twilight Council upgrading something, he's going to assume it's a Warp Prism play, as this is what Protoss tends to do. And it very well could be a Warp Prism play, but for now, Rodzynnn just getting at lots of observers, these players really wanting their information. The first one moving across the map. The second one likely going to stay home in case of Widowmine drops. And now we're going to see a third base coming up for Rodzynnn. So this game is not going to end with some early rush, it seems. However, we might see Drunkenboi moving out with some medivacs and bio in a second here. He's going to swap over this starport to the factory. These players are playing it very, very safe here. Now this observer is actually moving in, and Blink's going to be finishing up. So there might be a bit of a poke coming out here for Rodzynnn, just wanting to see what he can see, and now he's got this observer just casually parked in front of the Terran base, wanting to know exactly what's going on here. Sees the bunker, sees the few Marines, and is actually seeing these bio units starting to move out now. Meanwhile, one scouting Marine for Drunkenboi did see the third base, so he knows it's on the way, and he's actually moving out with a very small force of units. Like, I guess he was just scouting there. Very, very interesting scout. Like, he is playing it incredibly safe, making sure there's no proxy pylons or anything. This is an absurd level of safety. Oh, pardon me. 4 probes went down somewhere. I believe that was from a mine drop, but with that medivac, it must have been. Yeah, sorry that I missed that. Still working on my observing skills a bit anyway, but 4 workers went down there, and it seems that the medivac did go down. So a bit of an investment there, and there was actually, yeah, it seems that a fair bit of bio went down. Or these medivacs, they're still alive. Okay, so something killed 4 probes. Sorry that I missed that. Now, the stalkers are being chased away by this bio, which packs such a punch. And now Rodzynnn gonna fall back to the Adepts and Sentry for support. The Stalker's actually moving out again, trying to poke. Any damage they can do to the system bio will weaken it when Drunkenboi decides to commit. But now we see Drunkenboi just picking off into these medivacs. He's gonna go drop into the main base. However, Stalker's warping into meet it. I assume the Mothership Core. Yep, Mothership Core moving down on the way to intercept these. However, it is in a bit of a bad position. It's photon overcharging pylons. However, these Marauders and Marines are actually starting to pick off at these tech buildings. However, more Stalkers blinking in here. Quite a few Stalkers for Rodzynnn, enough to challenge this bio. However, these 2 Stalkers are not participating in the fight, so he's definitely losing a lot more Stalkers than he needs to, and he's actually bled off a lot of units here. This one Marauder actually managed to pick off the 2 last injured Stalkers, and one of the medivacs getting away, so that was a great trade for Drunkenboi. However, Drunkenboi still only on 2 command centers, so he needed to get some damage done, and that was a start. Rodzynnn getting out a disruptor here. This disruptor all depends on whether it's going to be able to get connections with the army of Drunkenboi, and that's what the robotics bay was for. Not likely for Colossus, as this is pre-patch here. So Colossus still have not been buffed, but there is a buff coming to them. The future games we might see more Colossus, but for now Drunkenboi's seen the robotics bay. He knows disruptors are on the way, so he's going to have to be prepared to split, as that's really Terran's only way to combat these disruptors, sort of straight up, is to split against them and try to take as little damage as possible. However, this one disruptor is drifting a bit forward. He needs to be safe with that. This one Adept, though, actually getting a great scout here, seeing the medivacs and spy. Oh god, the disruptor comes in to get the huge shot, killing off how many units? That was 5 units, a Marauder and 4 Marines, and that is a great shot for the first disruptor hit. And it's going to be starting to recharge here. So Rodzynnn just needs to hold on until then. Now, this tanky vac starting to shoot away. And Drunkenboi's just picking everything off. He's going into the main base. He knows the whole army is at the front for Rodzynnn, and he's dropping in. These tanks dropped in, already sieged. The second tank going to be sieging up here. However, there is some Mothership Core starting to get off photon overcharges, which is doing some great damage. And now another disruptor shot coming in here, getting 4 kills. However, the robotics bay was killed, so Rodzynnn is not going to be able to make any more disruptors until he rebuilds that. Switching into Immortals now, until he does rebuild that. He does, however, have 3 to 4 disruptors already on the way, which can deal great amounts of damage to a Terran army here. Now we see Rodzynnn in quite a supply lead, as Drunkenboi is still only on 2 bases. At this point, he's likely... Oh, no. He does have a 3rd command center on the way, albeit very, very late. If we take a look at the upgrades here, Drunkenboi's getting his 1-1. Meanwhile, Rodzynn's still on 0-0 upgrades, and I'm not sure... He doesn't even have a forge yet, so... Rodzynnn playing this upgrade list, he's just going to rely on these heavy, heavy disruptor shots, which just kill everything, regardless of their upgrades. And actually 3 probes went down somewhere. Ah, Drunkenboi dropped again, it seems. And now we have Drunkenboi. He tried to attack to the bottom of the map. Now he's moving over across to the right side of the map. This time he's got Liberators, though, so depending on how they position themselves, he might be able to take a very effective fight with these siege tanks and bio. However, this bio army is not really supported by medivacs. There's 6 medivacs. However, they're all trapped on this side of the map by these Stalkers, and the medivacs want to escape, but they're completely trapped. Stalkers down at the bottom, Stalkers at the right. However, Drunkenboi knows that Rodzynn's army is there trying to trying to trap these stalkers, so a large portion of his army isn't there, but Drunkenboi is going to try to push in. The disruptors firing their shots, one of them going in for the shot, but it gets picked off, and another 2 of the disruptors are picked off, and so all 3 of the disruptors go down that were defending the front for Rodzynnn, and that changes absolutely everything. These medivacs managed to skirt out to the top, which is huge, as they were completely trapped. Rodzynnn committed stalkers there, so he could kill them, but he did not manage to. However, he does manage to pick off one of the fully loaded medivacs, so that is a great pickup. These medivacs heading back to the main base for Drunkenboi, although really they need to meet up with his bioforce as the siege tanks start to shell away on one of the robos for Rodzynnn. He does have 2 robos, however, and he hasn't actually rebuilt his robotics bay. So now Rodzynnn sort of forced to take a fight here onto the siege tank. The stalkers moving and picking off the 2 liberators and blinking on top of these siege tanks. However, those siege tanks instant bio did so much damage, and it seems that Drunkenboi has picked off everything except these 2 immortals, which are very tough, but they are not going to stand strong here. And the 2 immortals go down, and now Rodzynnn is in a world of hurt. He's doing everything he can. He's warping in adepts to hold us off. However, he does not have upgraded adepts. His robotics bay just went down. And he's got 1 disruptor hanging out where? Okay, so he's got a disruptor and 5 stalkers over here. However, he's had to deal with this other push from Drunkenboi that's been coming down from the south. And now it seems that Rodzynnn is just being sort of toyed with here, as Drunkenboi is abusing the mobility of his medivacs and marines so heavily here. Drunkenboi now getting up his 3rd base, so he's not going to be super far behind in production as he was earlier. He's on 5 barracks production. Actually, 4 barracks production, but still, he's got a... Nope, 5, I miscounted. I shouldn't... It is a bit of a late cast here. I figured I'd do one before I go to sleep. Anyway, so now Drunkenboi getting up even more barracks, so he's going to be on 7 barracks production. Counted that right this time. So he's going to be able to utterly destroy Rodzynnn here in a straight-up fight. He's got the upgrades. He's getting up an armory, so he's going to be moving towards his 2-2. Meanwhile, Rodzynnn at the 12-minute mark in this game is only just getting his +1 attack for his Protoss ground weapons, and he was relying on those disruptors so heavily. However, he hasn't rebuilt his robotics bay. Like, he's not able to make disruptors. He hasn't been making disruptors for a long time, and that was really his main component in his army. They could get great hits off here with the 1 disruptor he has. However, that is now gone, and it's going to be on cooldown. Drunkenboi scanned this so many times. He knows exactly the situation Rodzynnn is in with so few technical units, and he knows his army is just superior in a straight-up fight. 4 siege tanks are going to be able to force a fight from Rodzynnn. The Blinkstalkers still blinking and picking off 3 of those siege tanks, and now Drunkenboi's been forced back, but really he should be able to take a straight up fight. The disruptor, though, has recharged, so he could be able to get 1 key fight here, and he's launching the disruptor, and he's going to connect with the siege tank, and now actually pick that off with 1 more stalker shot. However, Drunkenboi says, I don't care. He's moving and stimming with all his units, and he's just picking off all the forces for Rodzynnn, and everything goes down. So thank you guys for watching. This has been my first cast in a while. I took a bit of a break, 3 days. I would love to cast more, however, finding replays is a challenge, and I'm trying to do just original games on this cast that haven't really been cast by mainstream tournaments or anything like that, or haven't necessarily been put on YouTube before. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I shall see you next time. As always, if you have any feedback, feel free to let me know, as I'm always trying to improve on my casting. And if you like my content, feel free to subscribe, as I am trying to do these casts regularly.